I have with me S Gopalakrishnan, the President of CII, the Vice Chairman of Infosys, and one of the co-chairs for this annual meeting. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, thank you very much for your time and thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored that this is the first interview you're doing.
No, thank you, and I'm honored that you're standing out in the snow, freezing your boots off, but doing it sportingly.
No. In Davos, you have to. This is how it happens, right? You need to get atmosphere into all the events and all the shows.
Absolutely. All right. Let me start by asking you. I know it's early. We haven't the WEF hasn't officially begun as yet. But what is the sense you get of what 2014 holds in store for the global economy? Is this going to be a year of a stable recovery?
Clearly, the global economy is recovering, and in that sense, the focus is now shifting to. As the global economy recovers, can we look at some of the societal issues? So one of the key agenda points this time for Davos is equity, right? There is inequality going up in many parts of the world.
Yes.
Unemployment is very high in many parts of the world, especially with youth. Sustainability is a challenge with climate change, and sustainability is a challenge. So this is an opportunity to address some of these issues in this year's forum. When it comes to inequality, I think India has a story to tell because we have been trying to address inequality. If I look at the last 20 years, we have done a fantastic job of bringing large number of people, 200 million plus people into middle class. I think that's something we can be proud of and we can talk about.
Okay, I'm going to come to the India bit in just a bit, but before that, you meet business leaders across the world very regularly. You will do so in the course of the next 5 days here in Davos. Are you getting a sense that the investment mood amongst large multinational corporations is finally picking up, that Europe has turned the corner, that the US is looking better with every passing month, and that even though we've had trouble with emerging markets in the last year, things are not half as bad as they did seem in the beginning of 2013. Therefore, I ask again, will this be a year of recovery for the global economy?
Clearly, it's a year of recovery for the world economy. It's a year of looking at opportunities for investment, for multinational corporations, for businesses around the world. It's a year where they would reassess what opportunities exist and how they want to take advantage of those opportunities. Having said that, I think the focus on cost will not go away.
Okay.
There's tremendous focus on cost across the board when I meet people in Australia, Europe and in the US. The focus on cost is not going away because see, what I believe is happening is that the growth markets are developing countries. Right. And developing countries are very sensitive to price.
Right.
So those are the growth markets and they're very sensitive to price, and so multinational corporations will have to make sure that they're competitive. They can actually create a large opportunity for themselves in developing countries.
Do you see, when they talk to you about investments, do you see a bulk of those investments headed to emerging markets, as you pointed out? Or are we, countries like India, going to face stiff competition from countries like the US, which are, picking up in terms of growth, where opportunities are in the multitudes, and where a lot of MNCs would feel more comfortable with the regulatory or governmental environment and say, well, why not invest at home if things are going to look better, as opposed to investing in a country where I don't have the clearest idea of regulation or policy, which has been the bugbear for India as well.
So US is expected to grow at around 3% this year,
yeah,
which is a pretty good growth rate for a large economy like the US. $15 trillion growing at around 3%. So definitely US is going to compete for investments along with developing countries. Now India has to fight for investments. India cannot be complacent, cannot say that we are a growing economy, so investments must come here. We have to look at the ease of doing business. We have to look at our policies in the foreign direct investment side. We have to make sure that the policies are consistent, long-term. We have to reassure the corporations around the world, the governments around the world, that we mean business. I think it is necessary. And here again, when I look at the last 6 months, I'm actually optimistic that, of course, we have to go beyond the elections. Once the elections are over, I'm very optimistic.
Okay, and let me question you in a little bit more detail about that on two fronts. Firstly, the last couple of years here in Davos, and I've been witness to it firsthand, the India story was dead. Nobody wanted to talk about India. Every single foreign multinational corporation leader we tried to speak with would say, look, my money's gone down the tube in India, I really don't want to talk about this. Or that nothing's moving in the country, what is there to talk about? Is this year going to be a slight improvement as far as the India positioning at Davos is concerned?
See, the focus on India, the attraction of India actually never went away. In fact, if you listen to people, they are concerned about India because they believe that India is a great opportunity. They believe that India should do well. They want India to do well. And that's the reason why when you talk to people in private, they tell you very clearly that they are pushing us, or they are concerned about India because of the opportunity that India provides them. Yes, in the last 2 years, things have been difficult, things have been very slow, lot of issues came up because of retrospective amendments and things like that. Those pose challenges, but many of those are, I think, getting addressed. Some of the infrastructure projects are getting restarted. So hopefully, that's why I said we should look beyond the elections, and beyond the elections, and I'm optimistic at this point.
All right, we looked beyond the assembly elections. It was a rout for the Congress. It was a fairly big victory for the BJP, but most surprisingly was the coming to power of the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. Now, while I don't think anybody in this country will not support a citizen movement, some of their economic policies are currently being criticized. For instance, the power subsidies, the water subsidies. And we're seeing this have a copycat impact, on the politics of other states as well. Maharashtra, as recently as just a couple of days ago, decided to cut, power tariffs. Are you not worried, as the head of CII and the head of, one of the country's best-known companies, that this competitive populism, as it's called, is going to be another fatal blow for an economy that's struggling to recover from the last few years of policy paralysis?
Yes, it is a cause for concern, but I would point to two things actually. One, the Aam Aadmi Party is a new party. It's just 6 months old. I think they will struggle to figure out how to govern.
Okay.
Hopefully, I think once they figure this out, once they get a broader base, hopefully I think they will move to the center. Hopefully they'll move to the center.
You sound very encouraged about it.
No, but see,
what is your view on the coming to power of the AAP?
Clearly, they will have an impact on all the political parties, and they will have an impact on how inclusive these parties would become, the candidates they would put up for.
So a positive impact.
I believe it's a positive impact, and so there is positive and there is some negative also. Now this is election period, right? So every party is now focused on winning, right? And so the populist measures are clearly targeted towards the election. After that, that's why again I come back. After the election, I'm hopeful that people will go back, look at their finances, look at their balance sheets, and figure out that some of these things are not affordable, some of these things are not right for job creation, right for the economy, and I believe we will have better policies after the election.
This hope is predicated on the coming to power of which party, Mr. Gopalakrishnan? Because we clearly have two models, that are competing right now. If I was to rule out AAP from a seriously big national position, and that is the Congress style of economics, which many criticize as saying that this has been the lost decade for India, and the BJP Modi style of politics, where everybody keeps pointing to the Gujarat state model and says if he can do that with Gujarat, maybe he can replicate it with the country. I don't know the answer to either one of those, but I'm putting you in the hot spot and asking you, your hope that things will get better after the elections is predicated on which one winning?
I'm going to give you a diplomatic answer. Because, as a business leader, as an industry body, we are apolitical. We will work with all the political parties. We have to work with all the political parties. And I will also point out to one other data point. If you look at the top 10 states in terms of growth, these states are growing even at this point 7-8%. They are ruled by 6 different political coalitions.
Okay.
So that tells me that every political coalition which could possibly come will support economic growth. Last 20 years, average economic growth is around 8%. Last 10 years is actually about 8%. So I strongly believe, and all these data points say that it doesn't matter which party comes, hopefully. We will have centralist policies, we will have support for economic growth, and we will have the GDP growth coming back. In fact, what is positive is that some of the analysts have started saying that India could get to 6% this year and maybe 7% next year GDP growth, which I believe is a positive sign, and this is something that has happened in the last 6 months. That's positive.
Would you say the same applies if we have a third front style government come to power?
So in the last 20 years...
Or do you think the instability of that motley coalition puts sort of a cloud on all of this that you're talking about?
See, in the last 20 years, for a short period, we had a third front.
That's true.
And we had one of the best budgets presented by our current finance minister, Mr. Chidambaram, right? Now, of course, instability is a concern, right? Because economic growth requires stability. So I'm hopeful that whichever coalition comes, we will get a period of stable growth. We will get a period of at least maybe 3 years or maybe even 5 years of a stable government. One other data point I want to say, Delhi, nobody got a majority, but Aam Aadmi Party was allowed to form a government.
But with outside support from the Congress.
Right.
Who they were fighting tooth and nail. And that makes for the craziest kind of government ever.
But they're not pulling them down.
Yeah, but you came to power opposing this very party and its rule for the last 3, sort of terms.
So I believe that is because of the realization that we can't have continuous elections. We need to have some government, some stability.
Political maturity, you're saying then?
I believe so.
You sound very optimistic. What is the
first day of Davos.